Welcome, students, to this video on Chapter 7, Adverbials. Before we start Chapter 7, let's do a quick recap of Chapter 6, where we learned about grammatical roles, because adverbials are going to serve a particular grammatical role. So let's look at that again and remind ourselves what that's all about. So if you recall from Chapter 6, there were 5 grammatical roles that we looked at. The 5 roles we looked at were for subjects, then we had objects, direct and indirect, and complements, subject and object. There are videos on all 5 of these things on Moodle if you want to check out the individual videos. But just a quick recap of each of those roles. If we look at these 5 examples, we have the same predicate in each sentence. Watched the video. The subject is going to be the who is watching the video, right? And we can have one single noun, students, like a plural noun, maybe, right? If it's a singular noun, we might have a determiner, the student. We might add an adjective before the noun, the diligent student. The subject could be a pronoun like she, he, they, right? Or it could be a proper noun like Marilyn or Jason. Okay? So these are all different possibilities, but you'll notice that each one of these is a noun phrase. So whether we have a single individual noun, a noun with determiners or adjectives, a pronoun, a proper noun, they're all noun phrases, and subjects are usually noun phrases. They don't have to be. There are cases where we might have another part of speech, especially like a verb, could be the subject of your sentence. For example, if I had a sentence where I said running is good for your health, that word running, that's a verb that's being used as a subject of my sentence. So it doesn't have to be a noun, but 90% of the time, we're talking about a who or a what. You know, who is your sentence about? What are you talking about? That who or what is your subject, and it's most often a noun phrase. Okay. Objects and complements can also be noun phrases, and we looked at that in Chapter 6. So here we have the same noun phrases, the student, or a pronoun, her. This time it's an object pronoun because it's the object. Or it could be a proper noun like Marilyn. The same kinds of noun phrases, but now those are the direct object. They are not the ones doing the action, they are receiving the action. So those will be your direct objects. And we see that with the difference between a subject pronoun, he, she, they, and an object pronoun like him, them, or her, right? Okay, so again, still noun phrases, but now we have a direct object. And this is a transitive verb, right? Transitive verbs take a direct object. For ditransitive verbs, di meaning two, we're going to have 2 objects. One will be the direct object and one will be the indirect object. And we can see that with ditransitive verbs like give, bake, hand. Okay, what did he give? He gave a pair of earrings. What did he bake? He baked a cake. What did he hand? He handed a pen. Those are your direct objects. They are directly receiving the action. But who are the earrings for? Who's the cake for? Who's the pen for? Okay, he gave his wife a pair of earrings. The chef baked them a cake. Michael handed Jan a pen. We can see here that these indirect objects can be the same type of noun phrases as the direct object or the subject. So you can have a noun like his wife. You can have a pronoun like them. You can have a proper noun like Jan. Okay, it doesn't matter. It's a noun phrase. So the indirect object will be just like the direct object. It will also be a noun phrase, right? And we can see this more distant relationship between the verb and the indirect object because we can rewrite these sentences with a prepositional phrase. So we can rewrite these sentences where we place that indirect object into a prepositional phrase. He gave a pair of earrings to his wife. The chef baked a cake for them. He handed a pen to Jan. So because we can rewrite these sentences and put those indirect objects into a prepositional phrase, we have that more distant relationship where, again, we can see that that is the indirect object. The direct object is more closely tied to the verb. It's the receiver of the action, so that there's no separation between the verb and the direct object. They are, closely tied together. Okay, so those are objects. But again, they're all noun phrases. The subjects and the direct objects and the indirect objects are still all noun phrases. Okay. Now we get into subject complements, where I can say Jan was talented or Jan was a student. Okay. In the first example, we have an adjective. In the second, we have a noun phrase, a student. Okay. Both talented, both a student, they are both related to the subject, right? The subject and the complement are the same person, the same entity. That's why they are complements. They complete one another. In chapter 6, we were focused on noun phrases. So we were focused on the kind of subject complements like the noun phrase, a student. Okay. The most common verb that goes with between subject and subject complement is the be verb. But there are other verbs like become or seem that can connect a subject to the subject complement. Now let's look at the object complement. Okay, we're back to ditransitive verbs, right? Where we have two things going on, right? After that verb, there are two noun phrases. But here we don't have the same relationship as a direct object and indirect object. We've got a different kind of relationship. So what's the relationship here, right? Jan and the close friend are referring to the same person. Jan is the close friend, right? And in the second sentence, her son and Jason are again referring to the same person, the same entity. Her son is Jason. So these two noun phrases are completing each other. They are complements. And because the complement is related to the object, it's an object complement. Jan is the direct object. Her son is the direct object. Okay, what refers to the direct object is the complementary noun phrase, a close friend or Jason. So you can see that there are going to be many fewer verbs that fit into this situation, and it's going to be less common than the ditransitive verbs where we have a direct object and indirect objects. There are many, many more of those kind of verbs, and they occur more often. These verbs like consider or name or deem, okay, they are fewer in number and occur less frequently. So just to reiterate, subjects like we had saw, they could be something other than a noun phrase, right? We saw an example where we had a verb as the subject. And complements, especially subject complements, may be something other than a noun phrase, like an adjective, right? But we saw that all 5 of these grammatical roles can be played by a noun phrase. Noun phrases can be subjects or objects or complements. And we were focused on noun phrases in chapter 6. For chapter 7, we're going to focus on something different. So first we got to go back to an adverb, and we got to be able to identify an adverb. And if we look at this example, I hope that you can identify the adverb very quickly. So quickly is an adverb. It's describing or modifying the verb, sold out. Okay, it's the head of a phrase. The adverb phrase is very quickly. We have the qualifier very, qualifying or modifying the adverb quickly. So very quickly. That's our adverb phrase. Okay. So we have an adverb phrase modifying the verb. But what is that doing? Again, that adverb phrase is the function of it is to modify the verb, sold out. Okay. What if I had something different? Now I've got the same basic sentence, but instead of an adverb phrase modifying sold out, I've got the phrase last night. And if we can identify our phrases and types of phrases, we know that this is not an adverb phrase. Night is a noun. So last night is actually a noun phrase, but it's still performing the same function. It's modifying the verb sold out. In this case, it's telling me when something was sold out. Now I take another iteration of the same sentence, but instead of an adverb phrase or a noun phrase, I get a different kind of phrase, in minutes. And if we remember from chapter 3, chapter 4 in the book, if we can identify this kind of phrase, we have a preposition in followed by a noun, minutes. So this will be a prepositional phrase. This prepositional phrase, I think it's very easy to see that it's doing almost the exact same thing that the adverb phrase. It's telling me that these tickets sold out very fast, very quickly in minutes. Okay? It's a different part of speech. It's a prepositional phrase, not an adverb phrase, right? Not a noun phrase. They're all different kinds of phrases, but they are all performing the same function. They are playing the same role. Their role is to modify that verb, sold out. It's to tell me how they sold out or when they sold out. It could tell me where they sold out. Okay. It could tell me why they sold out. But these kind of phrases will modify or describe a verb. And that's why we call them adverbials. They are acting like adverbs, but they don't necessarily have to be adverbs, as we see in the example of this noun phrase or prepositional phrase. So that's what chapter 7 is going to be all about, looking at these phrases, different types of phrases, noun phrases, prepositional phrases, could be subordinate clauses, infinitive verb phrases, but they are all acting, playing the role of an adverb. They're modifying verbs. They're describing verbs, giving me some kind of information about verbs. So we call them adverbials.